Thank you for joining us. We will now begin the event.
Good evening. Thank you all for joining us for the fall semester town hall for undergraduate students and families. My name is Tracy Ray, and I am the Assistant Dean of Students. Today, I'll be moderating this town hall, which includes a Q&A with our panelists. Now, I'd like to start by introducing our speakers and our panelists for the town hall today. We have with us C. Sybil Raver, our Provost and Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs. We have Pam Jones, Associate Vice Chancellor for Health and Wellness and co-leader of Vanderbilt University's Public Health Central Command Center. We have GL Black, our Vice Provost and Dean of Students. We have Anita Wager, our Associate Dean for Undergraduate Academic Affairs at Peabody College. We also have David Turkile, our Associate Vice Chancellor for Auxiliary Services. And we have Lisa Clapper, our Student Care Manager and Director. So we'll be taking questions that were submitted in advance of the town hall towards the end of this particular webinar. Now, I'd like to welcome Provost Raver to say a few words.
Thank you, Tracy. Good evening, everyone. As Vanderbilt's Provost, it's my pleasure to welcome you to tonight's online town hall. Thanks to all who helped to pull together this event. This is really an important forum for discussion with our undergraduate and graduate students, as well as their families. I'm also grateful to our deans who've shown tremendous commitment regarding the topics we're discussing today. And thanks, of course, to the panelists that you've just introduced, Tracy, Pam Jones, GL Black, Anita Wager, Lisa Clapper, and David Turkile for taking the time to speak with us today. I'd also really like to thank you, Tracy, for moderating today's town hall. And to you, our students and families, thank you so much for being here and for sharing your questions and your perspectives. We have about 700 people registered for tonight's town hall, and this represents a great way for us to share updates and to answer questions. So first, let me just start with a quick snapshot of Vanderbilt this fall. In the last several weeks, the Chancellor and I have had the pleasure of welcoming over 7,000 undergraduates, as well as 5,000 graduate students back to campus. True to our educational mission, our top priority is to provide transformative, in-person, residential, and educational experiences to each of you. As many of you know, these experiences are so important, both inside and outside the classroom. Whether your experience is of walking across campus to attend a powerhouse intellectual seminar, or having the opportunity to carry out groundbreaking research in a faculty member's lab, or conversing with new friends who bring different perspectives to the table, or by gaining new leadership skills, either through community or a school organization, or by your dedicated participation on an athletics team or in the arts, this wide range of experiences and possibilities is what drew you to this university, and they are the types of experience for which we are known. We know that the close community that you, our students, build and share here is key to your learning and growth. Last year, we boldly made the decision to bring our students back to campus, while many of our peer institutions chose otherwise. And thanks to everyone in this community, this was a tremendous success. Remember that last year, we were able to do this in the absence of a vaccine, and we were able to maintain our community's health and safety by adhering to a number of rigorous and important safety protocols. This year, thanks to the vaccine, we are actually in a much better place. And this is partially because each of you has stepped up in terms of taking responsibility for this community's health. In stepping up, we demonstrate not only that our community pulls together with a sense of shared mission, but also with a sense of belonging and trust. This meeting is an example of that kind of trust and that kind of belonging, where we help to build that relationship through forum, where we are able to address questions and discuss pressing concerns. You might ask, how do we make our best decisions for this university that are aligned with that mission? I can assure you that Chancellor Diermeyer, Vice Chancellor Kopstein, other university leaders, and I, and particularly the members of this panel, meet daily, sometimes more, to determine the best path forward to addressing emerging challenges. Just as we did last year, we look at our mission and we think of that mission as guiding our decisions and our priorities. And as one Vanderbilt, we work with a common purpose to achieve the best possible outcomes. It goes without saying, I think, that this is also a really challenging time for each of us in terms of our levels of stress and concern. We again find ourselves in a period of uncertainty, and it's imperative that we support one another in our academic work our health, and our well-being. As always, I encourage you to draw on the university's numerous resources, including additional support and programming through the Student Care Network and other sources of student psychological support that you'll hear about from our panelists. In addition, I wanted to share some really good news that may help to lower our levels of worry. I want to take a minute to just go over the status of vaccination in our community, and I think that you'll hear more about this from other panelists as well. But just to hit the highlights, just over 96% of the university community is fully vaccinated. That's an incredibly high number that makes our campus actually one of the safest places to be in Middle Tennessee. The remaining 5% of those in the Vanderbilt community who are not vaccinated have received an approved accommodation or are in the process of receiving either a vaccination or further accommodation for those needs. As we will hear today, those vaccinations provide robust protection against severe disease despite the Delta variant, and they continue to be the best way to protect our community. We should feel extremely proud of our progress on this front, and we have you, our students, to thank for all that you're doing to support this level of success. In addition, there are other safety measures that we all need to uphold and which are guided by our close collaboration with VUMC, our Vanderbilt University Medical Center colleagues, and our public health officials. For one, we all have a responsibility to remind one another about wearing a mask and physical distancing when necessary, and we'll hear more about those protocols shortly. Of course, the effects of the pandemic have challenged us from an operational standpoint as well. This is true for businesses and institutions across the nation. It's true for us in this community as we creatively figure out our new normal for our daily lives together. We're aware that there are concerns about campus dining, which we are continuing to address. In a few minutes, we will hear from David Turkile, Associate Vice Chancellor of Auxiliary Services, who will answer dining questions in greater detail. I'm a behavioral social scientist, and I want to underscore that we are a science-driven community, and all the decisions that we're making are based on empirical data and advice from an incredible array of experts, both near and far. Just to give you a brief glimpse of those, our colleagues at Vanderbilt University Medical Center and the Vanderbilt School of Nursing are just phenomenal and deeply heroic throughout these past months. Several of them have shared with you or shared with other panels in past, and you'll hear from several of them today. They are among the world's most trusted and informed experts on these topics. We also regularly follow and have lots of consultation with national organizations like the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC, as well as the American College Health Association and local, regional, and national public health officials. We are so fortunate to count among these many experts working with us in our local response to the pandemic. Before we hear from them, I really want to thank you specifically for your fortitude and adaptability, for your engagement and your commitment. And most importantly, I think for your continued courage to aim high as we take Vanderbilt forward to the next level, even in the face of uncertainty and hardship. Our mission is to empower you, the next generation of this nation's leaders, and that goal is particularly crucial in these challenging times. In that way, I am so proud to work with you, our stellar students, this year. I look forward to supporting each of you in every aspect of your ongoing academic work and in your lives. Thank you for joining us. And back to Tracy.
Thank you so much, Provost Raver. That was certainly helpful as we begin this new fall semester. So now I'd like to turn it over to our first speaker for today, Pam Jones, our Associate Vice Chancellor for Health and Wellness, and our co-leader of Vanderbilt University's Public Health Central Command Center.
Now, mouthful, isn't it, Tracy?
Yes, it is. I have to take it very slow and cautiously as to not mix the words up. Yes. So now, Pam, yes.
Go ahead.
Pam.
Go ahead, Tracy.
Yes.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Provost, for those comments. I think it's important for us all to take a deep breath. It's been a rough 18 months. And it's been a little harder emotionally for all our students, our faculty, our staff, our parents, because we kind of thought we were through this. And then as one of my great colleagues at the medical center says, the virus changed on us. And that has caused us all to step back and say, okay, now what are we dealing with and what do we need to do going forward? So I'm going to walk through just a few slides here for you. But one of the guiding principles, as the provost described, that we've always used here at Vanderbilt is to use the best available medical guidance. And we really do have incredible experts, international experts at ready access to us to help us make the right decisions that are based on the best information we can get our hands on. We have always striven to make the Vanderbilt campus as safe as possible. Did you guys lose me there? Can you hear me? Okay, somehow it said I was muted. I don't know how that happened. But we've always, tried to create and maximize the experience for our students and others on campus while maintaining a safe environment as possible. As Provost Rover said, that our campus is actually one of the safest places you can be because of the vaccination rates. If you look at the community that surrounds us in most of this country, we are highly vaccinated and therefore have a much lower transmission rate than other parts of our city, state, or country. And again, we try to be flexible, but not overly reactionary. There's so many things that change with this. We try to be very measured in the changes that we put in place and try not to disrupt things unless we feel really strongly about it. Next slide, please. I want to go over just where we are. There's been a lot of discussion about exactly how many cases we have and what's happening. And we watch this, literally, Andrea, George, and I sit and watch our case counts every single day and watch exactly what's going on with it. And we do very detailed data analysis around our case counts. As you will see here, we started with our first week of the dashboard with 67 positive cases. And then we began to see an increase. This was not surprising because the community around us was also having an increase, as were many, almost all of the southern states and other parts of the country. So this was not unexpected, but it caused us to step back and think, what are the heightened things that we need to put in place? And I know there's been some discussion because people came back expecting one standard and we actually ended up implementing some additional precautions. But the reason we did that is these increased cases were an early warning sign for us, and we wanted to be proactive and do as much as we could. There's an interesting statistic here around the percent of our vaccinated community that have tested positive versus the percent of our unvaccinated community. And you can see here on the slide, 0.56% of our vaccinated community have tested positive in our population versus 2.04% of our unvaccinated community. Because even though we're seeing spread in vaccinated individuals, I want to remind you of two things. One, and this data supports this, the spread is less in vaccinated individuals than it is in unvaccinated individuals. And two, as Provost Rover said, the vaccine is all vaccines are extremely effective at preventing severity of illness, hospitalization, and death. So the bold step at the time that Vanderbilt made to require vaccination, which was pretty bold when it was done several months ago, really set the stage for preventing severity of illness in our population. Next slide, please. So the testing program, most of you are familiar with if you were here last year. If you're new, you may not have visited our testing center, but if you're here last year, you're experts. We have a testing center that uses a saliva-based PCR test that is highly effective as a screening test. We are currently doing a couple of different types of testing, and I'll walk through it very quickly. We do random testing, which is a sentinel testing that detects and forecasts possible infections and hotspots for us. This is a new layer that we've just added on in the past week or so. We implemented this plan, and we'll do this in the background and watch for evolving trends. If we see trends, we'll ratchet up testing or we'll ratchet it down depending on the volume of positives that we see. We do targeted hotspot testing. If we see that come up in a school or dorm, we did this last year. It was a very effective way to quickly assess a population and go in and get people in isolation and quarantine as quickly as possible. We are testing vaccinated asymptomatic close contacts. The CDC recommends that if you are vaccinated and you come in close contact with somebody, and again, that is defined as 15 minutes of constant contact within a 24-hour period within 6 feet. If you are defined as a contact by contact tracing, we will recommend that you get tested. And the really nice thing about this is we're beginning to get a large data set that's together that will really tell us what is the likelihood of conversion for vaccinated individuals. We also have a small number of the community, as the provost described, who are currently unvaccinated and have accommodations. And we do test all of those individuals weekly. And then symptomatic testing, which is really important this year. It's all about symptoms. We strongly encourage students to not go to class if you're feeling ill and go get tested, because that's the fastest way to determine if you've got COVID. And again, isolate as appropriate, or become comfortable that, by the way, I just have another virus. I don't have COVID. I can go on about my life. So that is available through student health. It's also available in the Vanderbilt walk-in clinics, and they have set up a new clinic at 100 Oaks that functions 7 days a week. So lots of symptomatic testing is also available in our community. Next slide, please. So let me talk quickly about the trends. We have seen an increased caseload. You've seen that. I'm happy to say that this past week, we haven't published the data yet, but it's very steady and not increasing above prior week, which is really good sign. And we were very happy to see that. We continue to see spread in both vaccinated and unvaccinated individuals. The majority of that spread is for vaccinated individuals is coming from household contacts or other particularly at-risk situations. And we have begun to see some asymptomatic close contacts. It's pretty unusual. And we think most of it is probably people who didn't test earlier in the summer and still have a potentially positive test. So part of the message here, and if you'll go on to the next slide, is that we have a really experienced team at this point who have a lot of expertise around all of this in place, who continue to watch this and advise senior leaders about what precautions do we need to put in place. Where are we? As the provost said, we meet frequently and enter into really good dialogue to make the best decisions about our protocols. We have very good situational awareness and nimble decision making, so we can change things pretty quickly. I think some students were surprised when a day later, some chairs were removed from our dining areas, but we did that quickly because we felt like we needed to de-densify those dining areas. We have full alignment with leadership to make these decisions. The testing capabilities remain scalable as necessary. If we needed to increase testing, we can do so. And then there's really good contingencies around isolation and quarantine housing as we work with GL Black and Randy Tarkington and all of our wonderful partners in housing. I think that's the last slide. So thank you so much for the opportunity to address those points.
Thank you, Pam. Thank you for sharing the many efforts our campus is taking, and thank you for your leadership in those efforts. Now, given you've covered a lot of information in your slide deck, we do have one additional question for you. So what is Vanderbilt's plan if we were to experience a major outbreak or influx of new cases?
Okay, that's a great question, Tracy, and we are fully prepared for that. We have a team already in place in the command center, a team of nurses in the contact tracing team. We work in partnership with the medical experts at both Student Health Center and VUMC should we see significance of illness. And then, of course, with GL Black and his entire team around housing. So we are practiced at this. We know exactly how to handle it, and we can scale things up and down as needed.
Wonderful. Thank you again, Pam. That's certainly good to know. Okay, so now we want to welcome our Dean of Students and our Vice Provost, GL Black, to talk to us about campus protocols for this fall semester. Good evening, Dean Black.
Good evening, Tracy. Thanks so much. It's good to be with everyone this evening. As Provost Raver and Pam indicated to you, we're really implementing and maintaining health and safety protocols in a measured way based on advice from our colleagues at the UMC and our public health experts and the CDC, with an understanding that we as a campus community are a highly vaccinated population. So for the Dean of Students Office, we're really working to provide as comprehensive and meaningful a student experience as possible, while prioritizing the health and safety of all of our community members. So our focus is on layers of protection, and that vaccination requirement provides a great layer of protection for our community. And then we're supplementing that with the additional layers related to masking, distancing, and the testing protocols that Pam just went over as other cornerstones of our response. So as many of you know at this point, for right now, we are masking indoors in almost all instances, and that includes for vaccinated individuals. We have a few exceptions to that for classrooms and residence hall rooms and private offices. We're also selectively masking in outdoor settings for particular events based on the scope and scale of the activity. We're encouraging and facilitating physical distancing in both indoor and outdoor settings. As Pam mentioned, we have de-densified some indoor areas and have added outdoor furniture and tents for students and faculty and staff to use to eat and for meetings and other activities. And Pam went over our very robust testing protocols that we're using. So we expect for students to comply with these protocols while they're on campus and also while they're off campus when they're participating in Vanderbilt sponsored activities. We do also know that the vaccination rate in Nashville is not as high as it is on campus. And so we are also asking students to be very thoughtful about their interactions with the Nashville community off campus in settings where there are no health and safety protocols in place. Another key focus that we have in our protocols is on visitors. Again, without knowing about that layer of protection that the vaccine provides, we do have more stringent protocols for masking for visitors, and we have been limiting large indoor events with lots of visitors in attendance and restricting access to our buildings on campus. All of this, as Pam mentioned, we continue to monitor every single day, all day, our campus data, as well as local and national data, and any guidance that we receive to make informed decisions and to make changes. And that may be implementing a new protocol, or it may be scaling back a protocol. We really want students and really everyone in our community to understand the important role that we all play in maintaining and sustaining the health and safety of our community, and to really take responsibility for that and act in accordance with our health and safety protocols. We do have escalation procedures through our Office of Student Accountability, Community Standards, and Academic Integrity for students who have repeated issues complying with our health and safety protocols, or who are engaging in uncooperative behaviors. But our focus, again, really is on having everybody in our community continue to step up and to think about the health and safety of all of our community members when they're making decisions about their own behavior. So that's really our focus and an overview of our protocols, Tracy.
Wonderful. So can you tell us a little bit more about other engagement opportunities for students outside of the classroom while they're on campus?
Yeah, so we have so many opportunities for students to engage outside of the classroom. And one of the primary areas of focus for the Office of the Dean of Students is really connection and supporting students in finding activities, communities, and resources that will allow them to have the most enriching experience that they can. So we have our residential communities where our residential experience team and our RAs and our faculty heads of house and residential colleges team, they're all doing wonderful work to build communities on floors and in residence halls. And these communities participate in significant programming, including faculty-led programming through the residential college system. We also have over 500 registered student organizations, and we recently had our student involvement fair, which was very successful, with thousands of students participating and learning more about how they can get involved on campus. Our student engagement and leadership coaches are available to meet with students to talk about their interests and opportunities to connect. And many of you may have heard of AnchorLink, which is our student engagement platform. And that has lots of great information and a calendar of events. So students who want to do a little bit more self-directed or self-guided research about what's available can utilize that platform. We have so many great opportunities covering a wide range of interests and topics that I'm certain everyone can find something that is of interest. We also have our inaugural service fair tomorrow, actually September 14th from 2 to 4 p.m. on Alumni Lawn. And that's a great opportunity to learn about service and volunteer opportunities. So lots of programs, events, activities covering a wide variety of topics, really trying to bring together the community and have students find that sense of belonging and purpose that's part of their experience here that we're looking for when we're trying to create an engaged student community.
Wonderful. Okay, so how are we supporting students while they are in quarantine or isolation? Just to shift gears a little bit.
Yeah, great question. So students in quarantine and isolation are followed by either one of our wonderful nurses in the command center or one of our partners at the Student Health Center. And they are checking in to do wellness checks every day or every other day, really to monitor symptoms, check in, provide support, and provide guidance about any next steps related to a student's health and well-being. Our student care network resources are available for students who need some extra support. And Lisa Clapper, who's our director of student care coordination, is going to talk in a little more detail about some of those resources shortly. On the Student Care Network website, we have a page that's a dedicated list of resources for students in quarantine and isolation that might be helpful. And really, I guess what I would mention for our on-campus students is our quarantine and isolation housing program. So we currently are using Blakemore House as a quarantine and isolation housing location. And our program really entails supporting a student for the entirety of their quarantine or isolation by transporting them to and from Blakemore, as well as working with David and his team to provide meal money so that they can order food that can be delivered to them at their location, and providing ongoing support through our housing and residential experience team. So that would be an additional layer in addition to the Student Care Network and the Command Center or the Student Health Center. This is very similar to the program and support that we provided last year. So it's a continuation of our efforts that were successful last year, and really working with each student based on their individual circumstances to ensure they have what they need while they're in quarantine and isolation to be successful, recognizing that it can be stressful or challenging for those days when they might be away and on their own. But really working again to provide that support through these different layers of resources that we have for students who are in quarantine and isolation.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you, Dean Black, for those great updates. Now, our next question is for Anita Wager, our Associate Dean for Undergraduate Academic Affairs at Peabody College. Now, how have classroom teaching and learning options evolved this fall, and how do you plan to support them academically?
Thank you, Tracy. I'm kind of thinking of this as lessons from our year on Zoom. The first thing I want to share is the overwhelming excitement and enthusiasm students and faculty have for being back in person. I hear this every single day. In preparing for this, I spoke with many colleagues across the schools, including my amazing counterparts in arts and sciences, Blair, and engineering, who just as easily could have been sitting here and sharing these stories about how teaching and learning have changed for the better. A common thread among all faculty responses was that the resources that were provided by the university, and especially through the Center for Teaching, were invaluable last year and are really at the heart of what is making us even better teachers this year. There were new technologies available to us, but also a lot of support for learning how to better use existing technologies. We all just got savvier, I think. Here are just a few of the things that we've added to our repertoire of practice. All of them provide greater access for student learning. I'm kind of going to talk about this in a few key topics. First, with respect to pre-class work, the things that students will do before they come into the classrooms. Last year, faculty learned to make short lecture videos that students would watch before class. And these brief videos are now being incorporated to provide context for readings or to clarify lesson assignments. They also enable faculty to flip the classroom so students can watch a short lecture and then do more group activity in class. We also had greater access to annotation tools for students to collectively comment on readings. This social annotation provides an engaging way to reflect on and respond to an assigned reading. And then across the board, everyone is feeling like their Brightspace pages, that's where we keep all of our information about our class, are much more organized and provide better clarity for what students should expect to learn each day. It's almost become a bit of a competition between faculty to have the nicest Brightspace page. In terms of what's happening during class time, I want to talk a little bit about group work. Pre-pandemic, small group work was often documented on chart paper or Post-it notes or whiteboards. And then last year, since we were using Zoom breakout rooms, small groups of students would document their discussions using online tools such as Jamboard or Padlet or Google Slides. And those online tools for documenting were more effective. They were easier for students to access in the future and easier to share. We are now using them for small group work for our in-person classes. In addition, students are starting to use them for collaborative note-taking during class. Another change in our classrooms is an option that we were using for whole class question response. So one of the useful Zoom techniques that the Center for Teaching introduced us to was asking students to compose a response to a question. They would put it in the text chat, but they would wait to hit enter all at the same time when the professor suggested it was time to hit enter. This provided them time for all students to answer a question, not just the 3 or 4 who shoot their hands up first right away. And this text chat technique is now being replicated using Top Hat, which is Vanderbilt's virtual classroom response system, so that we might post a question on a PowerPoint and students will type it into their phone and then hit enter all at the same time. In our labs, we have been working toward incorporating more experimental design in the lab sequence for many years, and the need to be virtual really accelerated this aspect. Last year, instruction for labs had to be more fluid, and students had to make educated substitutions for different supplies. As a result, students had more conversations about why specific steps were important. These are really important skills that are transferable to the professional environment. While being able to follow instructions is important, being able to understand the background and the goal of an activity, making appropriate on-the-spot decisions with appropriate justification, and being forward-thinking to the next step are much bigger accomplishments. Another area of change is in how we assess student thinking and learning. We were also introduced to a lot of new technology for assessing students in new ways and are still using some of that technology like video notes and video feedback as an alternative to some written work. We've embraced the utility and flexibility of online platforms for things like tutoring and help sessions and for meeting with students who are not able to come to traditional office hours. And finally, with respect to student well-being, we learned a lot last year about checking in with our students regularly. Some faculty have even scheduled planned check-ins in Brightspaces several times during the semester. Faculty are also offering more review sessions before exams via Zoom that can be recorded and shared. These are just some of the specific practices that faculty have taken up. Kind of in summary, we've embraced new ways of teaching and learning, and we've built upon technology opportunities that we learned about during our year on Zoom as we recommit to what we do exceptionally well, and that is teaching our students in person. So thank you, Tracy.
Awesome. Thank you, Anita. Thank you so much. Okay, so now we have questions for David Tarkile, our Associate Vice Chancellor for Auxiliary Services. David, we've recently heard from parents and students about issues pertaining to dining services. Can you tell us what we're doing to address these?
Sure, and thanks, Tracy, and I appreciate Provost Ray for having me on this call and allowing me to share updates on dining. Excuse me. So I think real quick before I get into some of the things that we have done, it's important just to provide perspective that campus dining understood the challenges that were coming for this fall semester and began working with the central HR department in May to really work on recruitment. There were 5 large job fairs this summer, along with biweekly hiring events that started as we got closer to the school year. So there was a lot of time and energy spent to try and beef up our staffing numbers and get to a good place to where we could fully open up our operations. I can tell you, as we got closer to the opening of school, we saw a number of new hires dropping off. Have seen a prevalence of no-shows, which has created challenges. And really, I think as everybody knows, everything really came to a head opening weekend and we had some challenges. And, we addressed that by adding the $50 in meal credit to the student's account on a daily basis. We continue to operate our dining operations that simply gave the students an additional opportunity and gave our directors, assistant directors, general managers a chance to regroup, work with HR to try and get some more people in. And we also had supply chain issues that we had worked with our suppliers throughout the summer. We're assured that we were in a good place. And, unfortunately, that's not how it played out. So what we did during that time is we took our menus and streamlined them in the dining operations, utilizing student favorites, really to try and expedite the service in the operations. As speed of service is always a concern for campus dining and is really focused on that. And especially what we saw with the Commons, the way that the students were entering the operation was on a single file line. And so our assistant directors and our directors were out meeting the students, talking to the students. We put up signs and stanchions to encourage them that, you don't all have to wait in one line. And that started to smooth out, which has been great. The Commons team also then moved platforms around within the servery so that would really facilitate that, right? Not staying in one line, but they'd be able to go to different spots in the operation, not feel like they were cutting in line with their fellow students. So that was a really good solution. We've made some additional operational changes. So like 2301 was opened up. Instead of being on the Get app, we opened it up to students being able to come up to the counter and order. That allows us to produce more food, serve more meals to the students. The Get app has some limitations in terms of the amount of meals that can be ordered. Sushi was offered. That was a big student request as part of the meal plan that is offered at Highland, the Rand Munchie, and Alumni Hall. And that's a location that I think some students know about, but I would definitely encourage students to try out Alumni Hall. It's basically in between Rand Dining Hall and Bronson, which are 2 busiest operations during lunch. Alumni Hall's fabulous grab and go offering. Sushi is a big part of that. So I would encourage them to go there. Additionally, what we've seen, especially with our first year students, is, when you walk into a dining operation, lines are daunting. I mean, with anybody, you walk in, you see long lines and you think, this is gonna be a 45-minute hour wait. Can assure you that they're not. We have gone so far as to put floor stickers down in the operations to let students know how long your wait will be at this particular place in the operation, kind of the Disney World, right? So just to help people set everybody's expectations. We opened up RAN on a continuous service basis. So it was closing between breakfast and lunch. And we were seeing a big demand at 10:30 when they were opening back up. And so that's really helped smooth that out. And then I think it's important to talk about what are we doing moving forward from a labor standpoint, because that continues to be a big struggle. The campus dining is the union, our team members are part of a union. And the way that a union works is any type of wage changes have to be negotiated, have to go through a process. So it's not the type of thing to where you can just quickly adjust that. Fortunately, the union has recently signed a proposal that campus dining had put forward to where there'll be a $500 retention bonus, $500 signing bonus, weekly bonus while people work. And that is really to bridge that gap until the new contract is negotiated and goes into effect in November. And we feel like, the current setting gets us competitive in the marketplace. We anticipate with the new contract in November that we will be, ahead of the current market. And that'll really hopefully provide some acceleration to that hiring that we're seeing. And we have already started working with the union. We have a meeting tomorrow. So we're trying to negotiate it ahead as soon as possible so that we can expedite that process. And then we continue to have 2 hiring events a week. And we have a large job fair once a month. So that continues to be a big area of focus of ours, Tracy.
Thank you so much, David. You covered so much. I think you answered really all of our questions that we had for you in that one. So we really appreciate that. I'm sure that was very helpful for our students and families and for myself as well.
Yep.
On campus.
Yeah.
Wonderful. So unless you have any additional updates for us, we'll move on to our next.
I do actually, if that's okay. I'm sorry.
Absolutely. I love it. More information, the better.
Yep. Lots of information. So, excuse me again, lines have always been in our dining operations. And again, I think that's something that our first year and even our second year students, right, have never experienced. In our dining lines currently, with what we are timing, our assistant directors, and they're working with students in the operations. Just real quick, don't want to get off on a tangent here, but the way that it works is our assistant directors will go to a student line, hand them a piece of paper, start the clock. They know when that person where they're at in the line. And then when they get to the service line, they take the piece of paper, record the time that it's taken. The max time that we're seeing is 15. Typically it's 10 minutes. And so we're in a good spot with speed of service. Breakfast service, we have backed that up. So instead of opening at 7:30 based on requests, we're open at 7 a.m. This is during the week. On the weekends, we've backed up from 10 a.m. Now we're open at 9 a.m. for continental breakfast. Just a little bit of a secret. We got hot breakfast out at 9:30, but we're not publicizing that. Munchie Marts, great supplement to our current dining program. And I tell you, I think that's something the students don't really realize what is being served there. All that food is made here on campus fresh. I figured I'd just list some of the items so that people can understand what we're serving. Some of our favorites: buffalo mac and cheese, General Tso's chicken bowl, hot chicken wrap, turkey sausage and egg muffin, pepper jack and sausage bagel. So those are just some of, we've got 20 different items at any time in our markets. And again, first week, and just complete transparency, we had some issues and our market shelves were not in a good place. This weekend, we had leadership on campus, and I can promise you they were full and they look great. We continue to look at expanding the offerings in the meal plan, and we are going to be adding chips as a side starting tomorrow. We've also expanded the bars that are part of the meal option in the markets. So we'll be adding the Kind bars and I believe they're or the RX bars, and then Cliff bars will also be added. One thing that people may have seen is that we have added a rotation of food trucks on the campus. That's at the Commons and at Alumni Hall. We are attempting to have 2 trucks for lunch and dinner. People are finding, outside of Vanderbilt, there's staffing issues there. And so we're working hard to get 2 in each of those meal periods at both places. There are staffing challenges with our food trucks. So we've had several today, which have been highly successful. I will just make sure everybody knows, as with any food truck that you go to at special events, right? They're not the fastest. So if you have some time, then I would recommend definitely. And again, just on based how they're set up, right? They have limited inventory. I would guess they're right around 300, 350. But again, that's a supplement to our program. So if you are in a hurry, you feel like you're too far at the end of the line, go into Bronson, we're open. Alumni Hall, we're open. Commas Dining Hall, we're open. So that's an addition and a real supplement, as I said, to the program. And Tracy, I just want to say real quick, our dining leadership and our managers are working tireless hours, 6, 7 days a week, 12, 14 hours a day, very committed to making sure that we continue to improve and we continue to provide great food to the students in speedy service. So thanks again for those questions and allowing me to share all that information.
No, that was super helpful. And thank you again, one community. And so it matters that our team is there working hard. We want to continue to lift them up. And you have successfully made me hungry. So I'll also.
Great, come join us.
Okay, but again, I'm sure this is very helpful information for our parents and students as well as our internal team here.
Yep, and real quick.
Oh, yes.
Last time, I promise, is that I would encourage people, if they have questions or we have a registered dietitian on staff, go onto the website. There's a campus dining email address. Please send in any questions. We have people who will meet students in operations to help navigate the operations. And our registered dietitian, Emily Settle, is phenomenal and will work with students on any individual nutritional and dietary goals they may have. That's it.
Oh, wonderful. And that's an excellent addition. Very important one. Definitely. Thank you so much, David. So now we have questions for Lisa Clapper, who is our student care manager and director for health and wellness for our students. Lisa, can you please talk to us about the resources available to support our students' mental health and wellness on campus?
Yes, thank you, Tracy. And I'm happy to be here. We are very lucky to have the number of resources that we do on campus that support our students' mental health and well-being. One of the primary resources for mental health is our University Counseling Center, or the UCC. And so the UCC supports students by offering the traditional one-to-one talk therapy, medication management, group therapy, and workshops. So those are all scheduled appointments, but the University Counseling Center also offers students the opportunity to connect a little more informally with counselors. They can do that through drop-in consultations, and these can be scheduled in advance. Or students can always call the University Counseling Center or stop by and speak to a counselor more immediately on urgent care. We also have the Center for Student Wellbeing. Their focus is to really support the holistic well-being of students, and they do this through yoga, meditation, workshops, different support groups, all of which are focused on well-being activities like mindfulness and time management. They also offer a lot of one-on-one coaching, so students have the opportunity to meet with a coach and work on wellness goals that they may have, which could include things like stress management, time management, financial coaching, or even finding community here at Vanderbilt. And I know I've only talked about 2 offices, but we have a ton of resources, and it can be sort of overwhelming for students to know where to go for what. And so that's really where the Office of Student Care Coordination comes in. We are here to help students navigate all of the resources, kind of lay out what is available, and then help them connect to different supports. And I'll just add that on top of sort of our brick and mortar services that we have on campus, we also offer students a lot of self-directed opportunities to focus on their well-being journey. So we offer free Headspace memberships to students so that they can do meditation, increase their mindfulness, help with stress, and the sleep modules are especially popular with our students. And we also have a platform called Academic Live Care. And this is new this year. It's available to all students. And it offers free telehealth to all of our students. And that includes medical visits with a therapist and a psychiatrist through this virtual platform.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that. So how can our students ensure they take care of their well-being? And the key word here is actively ask for support.
Yeah, that's a great question. Thanks, Tracy. First, we would always encourage making these intentional efforts to engage in proactive well-being practices. So looking especially at those activities that are related to managing time, establishing a routine, really setting a sleep schedule, making time for exercise and healthy eating, all of those are going to set a really good platform for success. We know that school is stressful. We know that there's a lot of pressure at Vanderbilt. We also know that sometimes those self-care activities are the first things to go when there are tests to be taken and things like that. And so we always say that outreach, early outreach especially, is very important. So we encourage students to be familiar with the resources before there's ever even an issue. And this really helps because then they have a connection on campus and know where to go before anything develops into a crisis. We also, with some of these things like Headspace and other mood tracking tools, we really want students to check in with themselves, take a beat, and really kind of understand, how am I feeling right now? But also to check in with their friends to see how they're doing. This is a really powerful way to encourage those help-seeking behaviors. It really aligns with our community of care here at Vanderbilt and can help model a lot of those behaviors. Students have a number of people they can ask for help. That includes staff on campus. It includes their peers. Every student has a campus connector. They have their advisors. If they're living in a residence hall, an RA can help. First-year students have their view sectors. Transfer students have their transfer student leaders. All of these people have been trained to offer guidance and help when connecting students to support. So we really just encourage that open communication. And we also have, as Dean Wager sort of alluded to, we have mechanisms that we have staff and faculty that are constantly looking out for our student body. And if there is a concern and we know that a student may not actively reach out for help, we also have ways that we can be learning about different concerns, and then we can be reaching out to students as well. So our community of care is robust, and we're always sort of looking for opportunities that we can connect with students so that they can have the most successful time here as possible.
Oh, thank you, Lisa. This was very, very important to our students, and we really appreciate your knowledge and your insights here. Thank you. So now we will take some questions that were pre-submitted by our audience in advance. So the first question is for David. It's actually something you didn't cover yet, David. Okay. So when can we expect our dining halls to go back to normal schedules and regular hours?
So that's a great question. I wish it were time sensitive. I really do, because I can tell you if it was time sensitive, we would be in full operations. Unfortunately, it's dictated by staff. And, as mentioned earlier, we are aggressively working with central HR. I can tell you there are daily calls. We're looking at numbers every morning and every evening in terms of offers that have been made and people who have cleared our background checks. And, Vanderbilt has very stringent background checks, which is important. We have students on campus, and so we have, best in class in terms of expectations for people who work here. So I can tell you those efforts go, and we want to get open. I was speaking to a parent last week, and, it's hard for us to see the Fuzz Station in Bronson not open. It's hard to see the Mongolian Station and Bowles and Rand not open. Those are huge favorites. I will tell you, each one of those are take some time, right? They're made to order. And so unfortunately, with the staffing levels that we have to be focused on time right now. Then once we were able to get the staff, now those are additions to the program, right? So it's similar to a food truck, but it's in there. I do want to add that we are in talks with Taste of Nashville partners to try and get them to come in to those stations and maybe take them over with some of their offerings. I don't have anything concrete now, but I just want to share that because we are looking for creative ways to really add some diversity to the menu and to the offerings with the current circumstances and resources that we have right now.
Wonderful. Thank you for the creative solutioning and the spirit of collaboration that's there. I appreciate that.
Thanks.
Okay, so I think this next question is for Provost Raver. How are faculty members going to support students this semester with all of the different changes happening around them? And the second part of this question is, will students be given concessions if they have to take time off due to quarantining or isolation?
It's a great question, Tracy. And, first, I just want to thank everybody else who's just shared. You just realize how heroically everyone's working to make each of these parts of students' lives work smoothly. And, we just really appreciate everyone's forbearance while we are trying to manage under circumstances that are pretty challenging. So I just wanted to thank everyone else who's just presented. In terms of the question, our faculty members are working with students in quarantine and isolation as they would with any student who misses classes due to any other health concern. I'm the mother of a kid in college, and you can remember that time when your kid has strep throat or has to go to something off campus, and there are those disruptions in a student's schedule. But I think the issues of quarantine and isolation really heighten our concerns for those. First, obviously for students, there's a couple of key steps. The first is if you're not able to attend class, your first step would be just to email your instructor to develop and confirm a plan to handle the reality of not being able to attend a specific class. Just as you would if you had anything else that were disrupting your class day or your week. This is really familiar to us. I spent over 20 years teaching in university settings, and I know for all faculty in the life of teaching and learning on university campuses, we really are deeply compassionate and sympathetic to the issues of students having to sometimes miss a class. It could be for an illness or a doctor's appointment, as I mentioned, or a job interview, or just other unavoidable disruptions. So faculty, teaching assistants, learning assistants, advisors, we're all really good at helping students to problem solve on ways to access all that technologically supported class material that Anita just discussed. And I'm so impressed to hear the ways in which those innovations are going to stay with us, because I think they really do foster teaching excellence and also opportunities for students to learn in so many different ways. Students can use those tools to get class notes, they can get additional readings, they can get additional review materials, they can get additional collaborative use of tablet and other ways of engaging in class discussion. In short, I think that there are a lot of ways, I know that there are a lot of ways that students can be supported to make up any missed in-person class time. Obviously, the concern that students also raise is whether they will have a chance to make up for a test missed or an assignment that was due. And certainly faculty will work with students on exactly that. On the faculty side, I know that faculty employ a wide range of really supportive solutions based on factors such as class size, the instructional approach for the course, whether it's a lab or a lecture or a small seminar, and even the layout of the classroom can affect the way the faculty member has organized that class. And so there is no one size fits all that faculty can use. But specifically, faculty can record their class sections. They can find a note taker. They can post class notes or slides from the lecture online, or even make that mini lecture, as Anita mentioned. And they can meet with students outside of that formal class time via phone or video chat to answer questions. And as I mentioned, sometimes faculty can reschedule a test or provide an alternative assignment. So it's just to say that the general principle is that these are all really great examples of what really excellent, really great, compassionate, responsive, connected teaching is all about. Whether we're dealing with a period of a public health related set of concerns or just the new normal. And frankly, I'm really excited about the way it demonstrates the highest caliber standard of excellence in teaching. So we thank everybody for working creatively to support one another's learning and thriving here at Vanderbilt. And I'll just pass it back to you. Thanks, Tracy.
Wonderful. Thank you, Provost Raver. I hope that releases some fears and concerns for some of our students who would be scared to take advantage of the creative solutions that are out there for them, but just know that those. So now for our last question, and this is for Pam Jones. Will Vanderbilt be able to provide students vaccine boosters? And what about the annual flu shots?
Great topic. Everybody's wondering about boosters, right? So we'll work in partnership with the UMC around a booster program that'll be basically driven by the recommendations of the FDA and the CDC. So at the time that it's appropriate for our students, we will work in partnership with the UMC. They have a very robust vaccination capacity. And then flu shots are already available today at Student Health Center, and any student can get a flu shot. And we strongly encourage flu shots again this year. We didn't see much of a flu season last year, but we're going to this year because we're out and about. So get your flu shot and go right away and get it.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So we are at the end of our time together today. A tremendous special thanks to everyone who submitted questions. We thank you for leaning in and becoming, again, collaborators in how our community moves forward. We're also going to be keeping a record of any questions we did not get to today. So that can be addressed then on our health and safety protocols website. And then a recording of this town hall will also be available on the same website for later viewing. So rest assured there. We want to thank you again to our panelists for being here. Just thank you for attending to everyone. We've got the chat there with that link. Thank you. And this concludes the town hall. And I hope you all have a great rest of your evening. Goodbye, everybody.